Now, hi. It's Friday morning at about 10, which means it's time for relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. And, well, that's what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to try to do some painting and try to do some, I don't know, maybe relaxing. We'll see. It's always an if, right? You just never know if it's going to be relaxing or not. But there will be painting. I've got all these little bits here that are primed gray, and they're supposed to turn into realistic rock-looking things. And I put them in this box so that I could prime them. Okay, and that's a folded over tape. And I'm just looking at this and saying it's going to be hard to paint them in the box. So, planning ahead, not in this case. I also just want to say that, explain that I don't have my large print chat window today. This, like I said, this over and over and over again, this is not a studio. This is a workbench. Okay. That I am allowed to use like 5 square feet of, about this cardboard and places like that. But, Wednesday afternoon and yesterday, it was actually used as a workbench for other purposes. And so things are just sort of, but not exactly back together. And one of the things that isn't quite back together is my large print chat screen, which says there is no input. And I tried the remote and that didn't work. Oh, maybe it's blocked. Okay, let me try something else. Hold on. I'm just looking at other things got moved around. Maybe this did too. But the power is going to go off any second. I'll be right back. And then the cameras, I don't know, the cameras moved around. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, things got moved around. There. What are you even seeing? What am I even showing you? I don't know. This to change the input. So here I am. I'm pushing the input button. No, the remote isn't working. And I don't know if there's a cable that came loose during all the movement or what might have happened, but I don't have my large print chat screen. So if somebody wants to chat today, I'll keep reminding you as we go along that I just can't because I can't see it. So unless somebody comes to the rescue a little bit later and says, oh, that's easy to fix, I'll just take care of it right now, which could happen. Sometimes that happens. But unless that happens, I can't see anything on the chat screen. I'm putting things back to where they should be, or not where they should be necessarily. That's a value judgment. Not necessarily where they should be, but where I can find. Oh, okay. It's interesting. I was wondering what was in this box, but it's a part of the Porco Rosso model. I should show it to you. That's the cart. That's the cart that it sits on when it's on land. That came out pretty well, I think. But yeah, that's what that is. I think next week, if I get these rocks to look like rocks, these plastic bits to look like rocks, next week I will be working on the Porco Rosso model again. And I would show it to you, but then I'll have to move the camera around, and I don't know what that'll do. So painting these while they're in the box is going to be a problem. So let's see if this works. It should. I'm going to take the tape off the box. Yay. And I'm actually going to just leave them on the tape for now. I'm going to sacrifice this paper towel by there, taping them to the towel very messily. But at least they're not going to wander around. There's so many of them, and they're tiny. I might put them back in the box a little bit later. There's, I'm told that they want them to be speckled. And that means like splashing little bits of paint on them, you know, or running a brush with my finger or something. And I don't know how that's going to work. So I may end up putting them back in the box so that I can do that. Not get paint on everything. Well, that I should have just left it in the box. Or as well as that worked. So the gray primer I thought looked pretty good, but no, it's not adequate. At least according to the people who will be putting these on a screen, and so I'm supposed to paint them gray and then put speckles on them. I'm going to try. I could just wash them. There's lots of crags and stuff on here. I could wash them and make them look livelier. And I could use this speed paint. I haven't tried this in a long time. Oh, wow. Okay. More stuff that's not in the same place where it was, meaning I can't reach it. This is going to be a day of moving stuff around. So it says shake well. So I've got this thing that says it's scientific. It just shakes things. It's like a vibrator thing that it's designed to mix stuff in a laboratory, I guess. Like you put a test tube in the middle. Looks like there's a little divot on it that looks like test tube base. So it agitates things in the sense of the true sense of agitation, like making it all upset. I'm shaking it well here. So my large screen monitor, I think was designed as a television. It wasn't even a monitor, it was a TV. Where's the camera pointed way up? I don't know. Yeah. Well, okay. If you've got a remote at home, okay, a remote like this, and it doesn't work. Back in the day, it used to be, your TV didn't turn on. That was back when there were picture tubes and stuff like that, right? And there were actually television repair people who ran television repair shops. That was a thing. You could make a living almost just repairing televisions. But one of the things that they always did, if you called them, because they would answer their telephone, people called other people on telephones then, they'd say, is it plugged in? Because it could be vacuuming and you could move something and it could come unplugged. And especially if you say, well, nothing happens at all. I push all the buttons and I don't get anything, nothing. Well, is it plugged in? And it was a nice thing to say, because otherwise you'd get charged for the home call. There are television repair people came to your house to fix your television. There were home visits for that, house calls. Like physicians used to do that too. There'd be house calls for if you were sick, because not everybody had a car and couldn't get to the doc, but the docs always had a car because they were, had enough money to buy one. Anyway, I said anyway again. Never going to get over that. But is it plugged in? And then you plug it in and go, oh, yeah, well, thank you. Well, this remote wasn't working. And so I thought, so there. See that? Those are where the batteries aren't. So I can't change the input device on the television monitor. There might be a manual thing somewhere, because even though the remote is here, the remote is not plugged in. Yeah, and then it says, note is very helpful. It says press input on your remote control, right? Just keep pushing that. That's not going to work because there's no batteries. Then select the device you want to view, but make sure the device is turned on. It's the same sort of thing that we used to get from the television repair people. Is it plugged in? I don't know how this is going to look. I don't use these speed paints very often. I'm not very good at using them. But I'm going to try a couple and see what it looks like. And maybe it'll look okay, and maybe it won't. That's why I'm trying this. Missing something I'm going to be needing. A little jar of isopropyl alcohol. There it is. Look around enough, and I find it. I'm going to take this guy here. Do the speed paint thing on it. See what comes of it. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's. Yeah, well, I'll do another one to see what happens to that. Yeah, even though I can't read the chat window, but I can talk. I forgot. I can talk without the chat window. It looks okay. I think it works. It's working better than a wash would, I think, in terms of bringing out the rocky look. Not like Rocky. What were there, about 8 Rocky movies? It's not that, making it look like a rock, but not like the Rock the actor, somebody or other Johnson the Rock. Not like that either. With all the tininess, little bitsiness. I don't know. Do not know. It is not my place to question. I do not question the wisdom of our DM. I obey. I am obeying by trying to make them look like rocks. But putting speed paint on them. Yeah, my large print chat monitor just turned itself off because it could find no input. So it had no reason to display anything because there was nothing to display. So I think this is one of those things where it's brown. I wasn't given any real explicit directions, and then I was given some really explicit directions. It's like, do whatever you want, try to make them look like stones, but sure, you could try that. But then I want you to do this. So it's either, I think that's just kind of saying we reserve the right, do whatever you want, but we reserve the right to tell you that it looks crappy. Yeah. Tape here. Ooh, sounded like taper. Tape here, or tapir, which is an animal that this isn't. This isn't a tapir. It was fast anyway. It is. I am speeding. I'm speeding along with the speed paint here. Yeah, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's puddling up in the crags, giving it a variegated, non-uniform looks. I guess it's looking okay. Make sure I get enough of it on there. This has to be applied, fairly heavily, it looks like. I've used this maybe twice without much success. It's either the application, I don't know how you can mess up speed paint, but I don't know. I guess I can. I've used it before, and I end up just using a wash, trying to like shade or weather something. I'm not terribly good at either one, actually. These are too dark for them. Well, I was told to put a wash on them at the end, which would have made them dark. So this is having kind of the same effect, except it puddles better than a wash does. It's a non-technical term for pigment settles in the crannies and doesn't in the nooks. As a reminder to everyone, I'll be streaming on Monday, depending on how things go. Today I might restart on the Savoya yet today. If it isn't going all that great, I'll be done with these one way or the other, either successfully or not. So I might get back to the Savoya today, but I'll definitely be back to the Savoya on Monday. But then I'm going to be away. I won't be doing the stream Wednesday, Friday, and Monday after. I will be gone for a week, starting next week, Wednesday. But I will be streaming on Monday. At least I'm planning to. In some ways, keeping them on the tape has been a really good thing because they pretty much stay in place, and otherwise it's just been kind of a pain. If they stick, it's better than if they don't. Putting them on the paper towel, I guess that's sort of working. It's working to the extent that I can rotate it. So it's all like it's about this next one here because it's all a smooth surface. I don't know how that's going to look. That might require some additional, whatever detailing to the extent that I can do that. I'm going to try it anyway and see what happens. It's kind of gets uniform because there's no little divots and crags and crannies and little spots to capture the pigment that oozes. It looks okay. This stuff, I think this is working better than the wash would because the variation in pigment is holding up a little better. What I find with the wash, even the dark colored ones, like the black or the dark gray, is that they look pretty dark when they go on, and then as they dry, it gets lighter. The color gets lighter. This is doing that a little bit, but not quite as much. Rotating this is a good idea because there's whole spots that I've missed. Some of these are going to be useful like that one and this one, because they're tilted over so much that the tape barely keeps them vertical if there's nothing holding them on the bottom. They're just going to fall over. Maybe that's the point. Maybe it's supposed to be a rock that has fallen over. This is moving on quickly. One would hope it would move along quickly because it's called speed paint. You want it to be speedy, right? It's looking to see if there are any real obvious places that I've missed a lot of, that really needs to be painted again. See the flaws later anyway. So these are going to be showing up on our Dungeons and Dragons show. I'm not sure how or why, because we aren't currently in or going to a place that's going to be full of spiky rocks. But at some point, I am pretty sure that we are going to be in a place that's full of these kind of rocks. That's why I'm painting them for our show. And if you haven't seen our show, it would be really, I think you'd enjoy it. It's very entertaining. Sometimes it's funny and silly. Sometimes it's not. Oh, thank you. The thing I have to work on next on the Porco Rosso model is the instrument panel. And there's two of them because the model designers knew that some model builders would be very skilled and some model builders would not be. And so there is a decal for one of the versions of the instrument panel. It has, the instruments on it. And the other one is just raised surfaces, dials and things like that need to be expertly painted And I'm going to do the decal one first. I'm not going to be satisfied with that because it looks like a decal. Whereas the one that would be painted, if it turns out okay, would look really very nice, really cool. So the plan is the plan, not necessarily the result. The plan is to do the decal one and attempt the painted one. I'm speed painting that rock. See how speedy I am? Speeding away there. That has now been sped. Well, they do look better when they were just plain old gray. There's a lot more rockiness to them. Again, I'll explain that has nothing to do with the Rocky movies. Okay, I'm just saying it looks like a rock, but that has nothing at all to do with the actor who's called a rock. Okay, this was what I should have done. Guess I can still do it. These are that's a better thing to do. Okay, there. So we got another holder. So what I'll end up doing is, since this is going pretty fast, is working on the Savoia. And there, I'll either work on the instrument panels depending on how my eye-hand coordination is working today, because there's a lot of tiny little detail on it. Or I'll start getting out the parts for the next part of it, which is the engine. Really? Sorry. I just wandered off camera there. I wonder how much of what I'd been doing has been on camera. The things got moved around, not a lot. The person who was working here yesterday did a pretty good job of putting things back, but just off a little bit. Like I was just off camera because the camera moved. Should be more accurate. The camera was moved. The camera didn't move. It's an inanimate object. It couldn't move. But yeah, it's not in exactly the same place. I'm just checking these now to see again if there's some spots that are just obviously missed. It's okay. There's some places that aren't really painted very much, but that's okay because then the lighter color shows through. If there's, an artificial looking gap, then that would be a thing. It's going to put on some of these. I'm just going to put more stuff on, paint stuff. Some of this paint stuff on. The next thing I'm supposed to try to do is speckle them. Could do that by, very carefully getting a tiny little brush and going all over them, right? But that would take forever, and it would just look like a brush one all over them. Told what I should try to do. This is going to be an interesting try. Is get paint on a brush, and then either Jackson Pollock it by going, spattering the paint, or getting a stiff bristled brush, kind of like these, okay, putting paint across the top and just going, oh, it's all dusty, putting like a glove on and going, blip. Guess I'm going to try that. These look okay. I'm going to hope this paint, see if that paint washes off or not. Yeah, so for the, it doesn't come out with the water here very well anyway. Taking a while. This takes a while to dry. So we're going to watch paint dry for a bit. I can speak in the plural because as I am watching paint dry, and if you're watching this, you are watching paint dry. And every once in a while, I will remind everybody that if you do type something in chat, I don't have my large print screen working. That did not recover from whatever happened here yesterday in terms of use of the workbench. It just says there's no input. And I thought, well, maybe something just got unplugged, but I can't find any cable that isn't attached. And then I thought, well, maybe the input got changed. And there's actually a remote for it because it's an old TV, not a monitor. The remote doesn't work because there's no batteries. That allowed me to go on to talk about TV repair people and how when you would call them, because you could actually get house calls for your TV if your TV went out, which was pretty necessary because the old TVs, sometimes they were actually huge pieces of furniture. They were consoles made out of wood and had speakers built in. They were massive things. They weighed a lot of, took two people to move them. And if you didn't have a truck, you couldn't get it into your car and take it to the TV repair place. So the TV repair people came out. They made house calls and they charged for it too. But, they'd come out and they'd have their toolkit and a whole bunch of tubes. Not tubes like this, like that. It's not that kind of tube. They were kind of tubes that were replaced by transistors later. But one of the first questions they'd ask when you called them is it plugged in? And then have you turned it on? And so it's like, why isn't this remote working? When I push input, it says push input. I pushed input. Nothing happened. It's because there aren't any batteries in it. So there's that. Well, as this is drying, this is going to make a mess. So see how much of a mess it's going to make. I'm going to try the spatter thing. Get these out of the way because I don't want to spatter them yet because I don't know if it's going to work and how it's going to look. So I'm going to here, cover them up. That was off camera, but I'm knocking stuff over. Okay, so there's a magnet. These holders, I just should take them out. They're really in the way. They're buried inside the plastic. Okay, under here is a magnet, and it just grabs stuff. Grabbed this. It grabbed a bottle of liquid cement. Almost knocked the whole thing down. The thing that's really, I'll demonstrate here, is they repel each other. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again because then I can use up some time on the stream. Is I had a minifig with a sword, okay, and some little appendages like spikes and stuff on the armor. And I had another one, and I set it down like that, and it repelled it, and it went flying. Move this up so I can have a bigger of the flyingness. Yeah. Anyway, I set it down. You see, and it went flying, and of course, stuff broke on it. About 3 pieces came off, like an arm and a sword and everything. I found a couple of them, but I didn't find the sword blade, so I ended up having to do one of my makeshift create a sword blade out of a toothpick kind of repair. But these, I'm not sure what the point of having a magnet in the base of these really has been. Other than that, every once in a while, I set it down and something sticks to it or it goes flying. Okay, I'm going to use ivory. I'm not going to use pure white because it would look too much like bird do. And, well, the thing I need some latex gloves. I really don't know what's going to happen. I was just told this technique works to make little speckles. And so I'm going to try it. And at least it's an acrylic paint, so if I get it all over myself, there's some chance that I could wash it off. pretty good chance that almost everything on this workbench is going to have little speckles on it. This is a one-use throwaway kind of brush, but I'll clean it off when I'm done. It's got quite stiff bristles on it, and it's used when I used to do remote control airplanes ages ago. Spreading fiberglass rosin, not the fiberglass itself, but the rosin, which was used for waterproofing, or actually fuel proofing the engine and fuel tank compartments. Coat the inside of it with the rosin so that when the fuel almost inevitably leaks, it doesn't dissolve the glue that's holding it together. I actually had that happen once. That was sort of worked. Huh. Requires more paint than I expected. See that? I'll bring a camera down. Weird. Look at that. Okay, that was with a lot of paint, and that's just a little bit. So this is what they want, like this. But yeah, that technique actually worked. I'm just really surprised. I shouldn't be, because the person who told me about this has an art degree, knows about art stuff, and learned really doing art. Yeah, but look, that's pretty. That actually did it. Well, okay, why not? Let's see if it works on the rocks themselves. Making speckles. Making a spectacle of, no, I didn't say that. The spectacle of itself. I did say it. Speckle. These need to be. So I'll rotate it. going to be finished with as much as I can figure out what to do with these pretty soon. And I guess I'll need to move on to the Porco Rosso thing. Getting speckles like I was before. Is this not working now? A long time ago, long ago, in this galaxy, it wasn't a galaxy far away. It was actually this galaxy, actually this very planet that we're on. Tried to do something that looked like speckled stone, and actually got some paint, spray paint. Guess they still make it. It was called, granite look. And it did. Okay, I'm going to clean this off and start over. I'm somehow, for some reason, not getting quite as much speckleness as I was earlier. Huh. This is interesting. Yeah. Used this brush before. Okay, I'm remembering. I've used this brush before to get kind of a speckled look, but I just sort of, I don't know if you can see this, I just sort of tapped it like this, and that worked okay too. Well, well. I keep saying well. I say well. I say whatever. I've got words that I just keep saying because why not, huh? Why not, Ina? Ina. There we go. So that's a good word. I don't. When I grew up, that was a word that some people said, and what it means is, isn't it? That looks pretty good, Ina. That's the effect that was going for, Ina. Or how about them Packers, Ina? Well, you get the sense just from me saying it what it was supposed to be. I'm not quite sure the origins of that came from. I've never researched it. Like I've never looked into why, what the origins of it was, whether it was contraction of something of some sort, whether it was derived from a German or Polish word or something like that. I'm not really sure. I don't know. I do remember though, it wasn't used very often, Ana, but you get the sense of what it was, how it was to be used. Like, this is starting to look pretty good, ain't it? I haven't made too much of a mess either. Pretty much. Oh, good grief! Really? Sorry. Pretty much mangled the bristles on this stuff. One thing I asked about, I might try this on one of these. Is what if there were like just a couple of spots of metallic? Like if I did this with dark aluminium or something, so that there'd be some spots that were just like a piece of mica, maybe. Okay. That it was sparkle. This, a little concerned about overdoing it here. Yeah, I think this is okay. I'm going to try to salvage this brush by putting it in. There's a lot of paint on the brush. If this doesn't look good, if they don't like the way it turned out, I can just reprime it, spray it with some primer again, and start over. That would be one way to fill some time on relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons, wouldn't it? To say, oh, that's not what we had in mind. You need to try again. Okay. Spray paint it all with the primer. And then instead of working on Porco Rosso on Monday, I would do rocks. I think that kind of speckly stuff, I think that's what they were looking for. Yeah. Take a chance? Do I take a chance and get out some metallic paint and spatter it just the slightest little bit, or just leave well enough alone? I'd hate to, say, "Oh, this is fine," and then spoil it by trying something that didn't work. Well, what I can do, you do this. Hey, puppy. Oh, there's some. On camera. Yep. Should take a few of these, just a couple of them. Really pick a few. There's a few, a couple, three. I don't know, a few. Some of those words, those quantity words, like a few, or I mean, a couple is supposed to be two, right? What is few? Like 3 to 5. We had a conversation once here amongst our Dyson Dungeons partners about how many are there in a few. Why do I have these out? I have these out because I am going to get some metallic paint. Get darker ones. I don't want it to be real white. I just want it to look like maybe there's a sparkle. And if it's just on a few of them and it looks okay, maybe I'll do a few more. This is more than a couple. It's 2 couples. Does that make a few? Then at some point it becomes a bunch. Not a bunch. Quite a bit. Not sure that made any difference. I think I got some on there. No, I'm not going to mess with that. It's not doing anything really. Oh, hi. I trying to explain that I don't have my large print screen up because this workbench was used for other purposes yesterday. But maybe if I put these on, I'll be able, and I lean up close, I might be able to see. I have a large print version of the chat screen. I can't see anything. There we are. Hi, Enforcer. Oh, the whole group didn't look at it yet. Go figure, go. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. My work area on this workbench got used as a workbench yesterday, all day yesterday, and things sort of, but not quite came back the way they should. So stuff has been out of place. My large print chat screen isn't working, so I can't. I really can't read chat very well. So if I like lean up, if you see me like leaning forward, it's because I'm trying to see the chat. But I'm painting these rocks for the Dungeons and Dragons show, and I speed painted them when they came out okay, but then they wanted them to be speckled, so I speckled them. Now they're all speckled, and I hope that's what they wanted. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what to do next. If the powers that be say that's not what we had in mind at all, then I'm going to have to reprime them and start over. And I'm going to see what you said. Oh, that's a really good idea. It's a really nice paper journal. Okay. On audio only. But I painted some. They printed some 3D on the 3D printer, the rosin printer, actually, a bunch of tiny little rocks that are, I guess, going to be something that we're going to wander through as characters on our D&D show. And they said, well, give them some life with a wash or something. I used speed paint and then speckle them. And they showed me a technique that involved brushing, spattering a brush, sort of, basically. And now they're speckled. And they probably will look better on camera than they will in real life. They look like they're speckled. But before I go much further with them, I'm going to have to get an opinion about whether it's what they want or not. So I'm not sure what to do right now. I really need them to come down and take a look at it to see if this is what they wanted. Yeah, my sleeves. Okay, I'm going to read what you said. I'm just looking at it. Oh, you're going to handwrite it. If you don't like your handwriting, your journal will look even better. The handwritten journal is just really, really cool. On our D&D show, I kind of keep a journal, and sometimes I go back and I can't read what I wrote. But Nicole, who plays Zoya Ansul, our changeling druid, keeps a really nice journal. It's like that. It's a handmade paper with a leather binding. It's really kind of beautiful. And then she has very clear handwriting, and the journals themselves are just a really great artifact of the show. So it's, I think, really appropriate that you would enforcer that you would transfer your character descriptions and stories into a journal like that. Very nice. I am I usually don't, when I'm streaming like this, I usually don't take a break other than a really quick bio, but I might need to find out if these stones are what they wanted or not. And maybe I can get some batteries for the remote and get this other monitor TV thing working. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you start putting it in and you add to it, and you'd have to skip over the parts that you wrote about other characters. But I think, you're telling stories. That's really what you're doing, is you're a great storyteller with your characters. And what better place to tell the story than in a beautifully bound book? So I don't know. I would say, why hold back on the detail at all? Get it all in there. Put the whole story in. And it's okay if you have to skip around. Old manuscripts would do that, right? They'd write something and then, it would come to an end, and then they'd write something else, and then they get another piece of parchment or whatever, and it would be in a different place. And so it was not an unusual thing to be skipping around. I do need to take a break, though. Two reasons. One is I just need to take a break. And the other is I want to get a reaction to these stones to see if they're okay or not. And I think I'm going to take this one. Everything's still sticking to it, so I can carry it upstairs to show off. Show and say, how does this look? Is this what you had in mind? And then I'm going to be back in a bit, and I'm going to try to get batteries for the remote and try to get my large print chat screen working again. But I'm going to check and see what you had. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of descriptive writing, but I would say go for it. I'm going to be back it'll be like 10 minutes. Okay, a little bit longer break than I usually take on this 10 to 1 time schedule. But I need to find out if I'm on the right track with this or not. And I will be back quickly. Okay, I'm back. Needed to take a break. To take a break, and also to find out if these stones are coming out the way they wanted them. And the answer was yes. I got my break in, and almost. They're very speckly, but the advice is to add some yellow to it. So picked out this yellow, which is yellow. And I'm going to do the same thing with the flicking that I did with the ivory color earlier. And then there'll be some yellow speckles. Probably not as many. I'm not going to do it as densely as these speckles, but there'll be yellow speckles. And I got my large print chat screen up. I wasn't paying attention to what the problem was, but it's fixed. So Now I can more or less read it. Can more or less read it. Let's see if I can make it even bigger. I don't know. Oh, there it is. It's better than the tiny little screen that I had to like lean way over to see. Yeah, that's better. And you got to see my hand up close as I did that. Okay. Be focusing a little. I need to get some. I took the other gloves off, so now they're used gloves, and put some new ones on so that I don't cover my hands in paint. The next step then is to put yellow speckles on in addition to the white speckles. And then I've been informed that they're going to print more of these because they're really tiny. Some of them are really tiny, and they're going to be bigger. So I'm guessing that the smaller ones will be about this size, and then some will be larger. If I'm going to put speckles on, I should remember to add yellow speckles to the few that are big. Well, having done this already, hopefully I can move forward with some confidence that this is going to work. Stir up the paint. So while that's mixing, yeah, it's pretty amazing how this microphone filters out any other sounds other than my voice. Software is pretty good at that. All right, on our Dungeons and Dragons show, the voice that Nines, our Tabaxi Bard, uses when the filter is on the microphone, it registers as noise. And I can understand why. You know, because when we're doing the show and I'm sitting next to Nines, it registers as noise to me too. But the battering works. See if I can sort of replicate what I was doing, but with yellow now instead of beigey. Whatever. I'm not seeing anything happen. I don't know why it's not making yellow speckles. Getting yellow paint all over the. Okay, well, that's a mess. I have to clean that off. Well, I have to be quiet while I'm doing this. It's like this is a no skill kind of thing, but for some reason, I found myself not thinking of anything at all to say. There was a big orange blot there. While I'm trying to flick little bits of yellow paint onto these rocks. I'm gonna get one of these, this big one, and see what happens. Last time I did this, I had to ended up washing the brush and sort of pretty much just starting over. The paint's not spattering like it had been. Well, I'm going to try that. Sometimes things just have to start again, restart. And then there's a lot of cleaning up that needs to be done. Well, that wasn't good. That was just a blot. Okay, the brush is too wet. It was holding too much water, and the spots are coming out too big. Again. I'm getting frustrated by this. It was working and then not working. How could something be working and then stop working? Why? What is it with that? There we go. I'm getting speckles. It's going to use up the paint that's on here. But there is some of yellowish speckles on the kind of like rock things. Speckly. Yay, speckle. And see the color difference, I guess. There's at least that. I've been told that we're going to get new ones. Addition to this, some are supposed to be sandstony, which means that they'll be brown tones. Some might be red granity. We've dealt with red granite before. So it looks like in my future of relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, I'll be doing more of these rocks of various sizes and different colors, I guess. Really, I guess it's sort of okay. They can always speckle more, I guess, if they want. I'm wondering, I can't see very well here with my glasses on. Yeah, there's a fair amount of yellow on there. It's a lot of yellow speckles everywhere other than on the rocks. And put a little more on since I'm making a yellow mess anyway. Just making, yeah. Washing this off. Got yellow paint from my glove on this. Yeah. Sort of kept something a little bit clean. I'm just going to splatter yellow. I'm just going to go where it's going to go. This is an interesting sort of artistic technique, I guess. If you're going to spatter paint, one way to spatter it is just flick it off the end of the brush like that. It is, in fact, spattering it. I'm going to use up what I've got. And then call it macaroni, huh? I found out what that meant once, Yankee Doodle, and called it macaroni. It's like, what? Why would you call your hat pasta? But it wasn't. Macaroni was a word for something else, like pretending to be fancy but failing, something like that. I'm not sure, but it was something like that. It was weird. Words end up meaning different things at different times, and that was one. That spot is too big. I'm going to cover it. The yellow spots turned into a giant yellow blotch. Just going to darken it with the speed paint. Yeah, there. No, it's much smaller. Good. Grab another. See, look, I managed that. What I did was I grabbed the bottle with the glove that's all covered in paint, and on this side it looks okay, but there it looks pretty yellow. So, yuck. There. Take that off. Get some more paper towel. Cap this up. Really need cleaner water at this point. I'm going to try to get some of that off. Get most of it off anyway. But that's how things go on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. Is sometimes one can see a mess in process. That's what that was. That was making a mess. Okay, well now there's some yellow specks in addition to the white specks. I guess that looks okay. There's not a lot of them on there, but otherwise it'd get probably too much so. And they can always play with it too if it doesn't look the way they want it to look. I have used up a lot of yellow paint. The wash water is very yellow. A lot of paint that hardly made any difference in terms of speckles. It's a wasteful technique. This brush needs to soak if I want to use it again, and I do want to use it again. I've only got 2 of them, even though these were designed to be like single-use brushes, but I want it to be used more than once. There, now the rock has yellow speckles in addition to the kind of beige speckles that were on there before. If I'm going to do anything else, I need to get some clean brush washing water. I hate to keep walking off camera, but I need to. Okay, that's pretty yellow from all the yellow paint that didn't get spattered on these rocks. So I'm going to be back. Give me just a couple minutes. Let me just dump these and get fresh. So is this a raggedy stream or what? Or what? More yellow paint that didn't get. Given the amount of paint that went onto these rocks, I'd say like 1% of the paint that I've used actually ended up going on the surface that I was attempting to paint. Otherwise, it's on the glove, it's stuck on the brush, eventually in the wash water. I have to remember that when there are more of these that are made. Maybe, oh yeah, that's what I should do, is the next time, I was using these squeeze bottles, these little bottles of Vallejo paints. It's what we use. So, they come in small quantities and they cap up and they got a little nozzle and they stay pretty well because it's capped up pretty well. That is, the solvent doesn't just evaporate away. But we have these large bottles of a different brand of paint that we bought. We're painting dungeon tiles where one goes through a fairly large amount of paint. So if I'm going to do the speckle thing anymore, I'm going to use the high volume paint, and not this where only 1% of the paint ends up on the surface and the rest of it ends up everywhere other than the surface. Now I need to quit messing with this brush. I could have put this on camera so you could see me try to get the paint out of it onto the paper towel. But it looks today like 35-40% of whatever I'm doing has been off camera. I'm going to blame on just small changes in the location of things in the studio that was rebuilt after being used for something else. Yesterday, I'm going to blame it on that. That isn't really fair because that's not really the reason why, but it's the reason why. I'm going to take these. Well, there's a bunch of rocks here, and make an attempt to move them. You can see, I'll show you what I'm doing. I have the bottom of this box here, and I'm sliding the paper towel carefully onto it so that they don't fall off. And there, that's what happened. Now I've got them here, and I'm going to put them in another place. There's a spot. There's a place. Hi, Hyper. Thanks for joining in. I just finished painting some set pieces for our D&D show. We apparently are going to be entering into some sort of cavern or canyon or something that has rocks in it. And so I had primed these gray and then speed painted them and then speckled them. And the speckling process, these are set pieces for little scatter pieces for our D&D show. So our D&D characters will be entering a field of spiky boulders. Now these were primed gray. Usually with speed paint, you use a lighter undercoat, but they're rocks. And then I speed painted them to capture the cragginess. You can kind of see it there on some of these. They came out kind of nice and craggy. And then the DM said, well, we want speckles on them. So I experimented with different speckling techniques and ended up just flicking a brush like that and got speckles. But I discovered that the speckling technique wastes huge amounts of paint. Just to get a few speckles on here, there was enough paint to paint all of these rocks with a base coat. So the next time I speckle something, yeah, 12 units of currency. I will bet 12 units of currency that a rock will fall on my character because I just leveled up recently and got max health points. And so what better thing to do than have some rocks fall and take them out of the game? Yeah, that's likely to happen. So I'm done with these, and I've got like an hour left. And with that amount of time, I probably should do something, right? Can't get away with not doing anything. I could just end early, maybe go up, have a nice lunch, whatever. But no. What I'm going to do instead is go back to the Porco Rosso plane. And if anybody remembers what this is, or even if you don't remember, I'll show you. This is Porco Rosso's Savoia S21. The part I'm working on is this, which is the interior of the plane. The body of the plane lifts off of this and shows the interior detail. And I've been working on this, and it's been coming along okay, but the part I'm going to be working on next is the instrument panel. And if I can get this up close, you can see that this instrument panel in the display model on the box here is just exquisitely painted. You know, just really beautifully done. And I'm going to try to do that, I guess. So there's two instrument panels. They're in here, so they're not very big, right? Not very big at all. One of them has no detail on it. See, it's perfectly flat, and a decal goes on there. And the other one, as you can see here, has dials on that need to be painted. And I decided that the instrument panels were a different wood than the rest of it. They're mahogany. And so I need to wash these to make them look like that. And I think I'm just going to do that now. So, oh yeah, that's an important piece there. That's a gun sight. You got your brother into it? Is that a game, maybe a game that you were DMing? Or just got your brother to join in with you in a game that you were playing? Oh, just so you can see I'm doing something. This is the internal detail. You can see that it, I mean, even up close, I got like different colors on the control yoke and on the rudder pedals, and did the fuel tank bands in a different color than the fuel tank. And it all came out pretty well. This part, which goes up here, was attached and now it's not. So I need to reglue that. And these bits here, including these little controls and stuff, form a shell that goes around the pilot's seat. But in order to do that, the instrument panel attaches there. And you can see the different color of wood. I made it, kind of reddish brown like that. The instrument panel has to be done because if I assemble all of this, I can't get the instrument panel to attach to that. So on we go. But the next step, and I'm going to do the backs first, is to wash this in that reddish brown wash so that it looks sort of mahogany. Smoky ink is the color. What I'm not sure about, this is why this whole instrument panel thing is baffling. I mean, this is the one that gets a decal. So the decal just goes on the flat surface. That's not a problem. But this one, the instrument panel, I want the wood color all around it. But then I need to paint the dials and the bezels. So I'm going to have to get a teeny brush out and paint around it. and then a teeny brush and wash it. But I don't want to do the wash until this all is painted, because like if I paint the bezel on one of the, it's so tiny. There. If I paint the rim, the bezel on these instruments, say I do that in brass, and the brass paint gets on the base coat of this brown, and it's washed already, I won't be able to touch it up. So I think I'm going to take the chance and paint the base coat on here very, very carefully, trying not to get it onto the instruments, knowing that I might have to do some touch-ups back and forth. But I'm going to do the wash on these first. Maybe I'll just leave it there. These little prongs, you can probably see them. Those fit into some little holes in the, here, they fit into those little holes there. So this will eventually go there. So I can use a toothpick, and if I hold it down right between those holes, it'll be covered up there. The rest of this will show. See how the rest of this goes. I might try to reattach that bulkhead that came off because the cement didn't hold. So as I said, one of these is just plain flat on the other side. There's nothing there, and a decal goes on there. That's the cheater version of the instrument panel. And then this one has embossed, molded in instruments that I'm going to attempt to make look like instruments. Oh, wow. So I was doing the speckle thing, but look, I got yellow paint all over this. That's where all the yellow paint went. Any of it went where I was wanting it to go. I want it to look kind of like wood grain, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfectly uniform. I also want to make sure I get the tops. The top is going to show the edge. You know what I mean? Know what I mean? The edge there. Is that coming out the way I want it? I guess maybe it is. It's just hard to tell what's looking compared to the way I want it to look. And then the light's kind of reflecting on it and making it difficult. It should have been like 12 seconds worth of whatever. Okay, well, there, that looks okay. That dry for a bit, and then flip them over. And one of them, the flat surfaced one, I'm just going to do the same thing to it because the decal goes over it. The other one is going to require the teeniest little brush and the desert yellow paint, which are not either of those colors. I had all those paints out, but now those are the ones that seems to have. I am looking around for the colors of paint for the pork. I must be in the last 45 minutes of the stream. Hi, Enforcer. What did you miss? You missed yellow speckles. I think I spattered yellow paint on those rocks I was making. Okay. And I kept thinking, why am I not getting yellow paint on the rocks? Because it was all going here. And I'll just show you one. But like 1% of the paint I was using that now has yellow specks in addition to the buff specks. So it kind of worked, but I have to find a different way of doing it that's less wasteful. So I finished those, and now I'm working on the Savoia S21 again, and the instrument panels, which have me concerned. Because this one, there, great. This one, I just washed them, darker wash, so you can see the color. I want the instrument panels to look like mahogany as opposed to just the regular wood. You can see the difference in color and how this really flat look turns into kind of a, it looks pretty nice. This one, the decal goes on here. This one has the instruments molded in. And so I'm going to put the wash on that and then take a teeny brush and paint this base coat color all around these instruments. And then on Monday, I'm going to start painting the instruments themselves, be putting like white in here and in the inside of the dials, trying to get the rim brass. These little buttons will be black or red. And then on the inside, there's actually little bits of like dials and hands and stuff. I think that's an artificial horizon, which is a little worrisome because it's not horizontal. I think, yeah, that was one of my sayings. I used to have sayings or aphorisms when I had a job, which was a management job. You have, oh, cool. Actually, that will make it look really good using a fountain kind of pen. That was another skill I never developed, right? Amongst the many skills I never developed was the ability to use a fountain pen without getting ink everywhere. But that will look really good in a journal. So the decal goes on there, and hopefully I won't have to use it. They're fine points, but you have a lot of control with the fountain pen because you can also make can't you, by like rotating it in a way? Have parts of your stroke be broader than others, so it really gives a lot of variation to the letters that you're making. At least that's as I recall. What I need to do, I need to put it on here. I'm hoping that doesn't take the paint off the other side. If it does, it's the back. I can redo that. This, oh, yeah, you are pressing too hard if you're cutting the paper. Here. I need the tiniest brush I've got. I'm looking forward, when I get back on Monday, I'd like to hear about how your journaling, your creation of the journal went. I'm also interested in knowing what you started with, okay? Because you've got so many characters that you've been working on. Excuse me. That I'd be interested in knowing which one you're going to start with. What I don't have is I don't have the color I need, because I will just reiterate, yesterday, this is a workbench, not a studio. Okay, there we go. And work was done on the workbench yesterday, and things got moved around, and I was able, they got put back mostly where they belong, so I was able to find almost everything. But some things, some things aren't back where I remember them being. And the most important one of those is the paint colors that go on the Savoia. Okay, there's like 4 of them that are specific just to this model, and I don't know where they are. So I'm looking around, just looking for them. I would not have thought of looking up there until I did. That made no sense. I obviously did think of looking there, and I found them. So these specific colors, I bought these big, here, I bought these larger jars of paint because I could get the colors I wanted. And I could have bought the smaller jars. These come in big jars and small jars. There you go. And the big jars hold more than twice as much as the small jars, but they cost only like 30% more. And so it either turns out to be a really good deal, because then I get a whole lot more paint for the money, volume for the money, or it turns out to be a really bad deal because I use like 6 drops of the paint from the bottle and the rest of it just dries out, in the bottle or never gets used. So I don't know how that's going to go. Anyway, I got khaki, I got olive drab, German gray, and the one that actually has been used is desert yellow. The desert yellow is the color of the bottom of the hull. That's desert yellow. This is desert yellow with a brown wash on it, so that the inside looks a little more woody. But the base coat for all of these interior wooden parts is this desert yellow, and that's the one I was looking for. And I found it. And I found the other colors too. Yeah, I need to paint this base color all around and not onto these dials and stuff, and at the same time not have it form brush marks. And then on Monday, I'm going to start painting the instruments. And this isn't going to take 45 minutes to do this unless I really make a mess of it. So what I think I will be doing next then is finding these parts for the engine. Okay, maybe all the way up to here. Because when I take the parts off, this is an assembly that happens. Okay. When I take the parts off the trees, there's always a lot of sanding and filing that needs to be done to make them be presentable. And then there's things like these get cemented together, and then there's a seam that runs along the bottom, and that has to be, for painting, has to be buffed out. But if you've seen this before, you've seen me do that, spending a lot of time just shaping and sanding and polishing these plastic pieces so that the mold marks and the flaws and the seams where they're cemented together don't show. We need this. Okay, this is the one that has the decal to be put on later. That little bit there is one of the very last things that gets put onto the model. That's a gun sight that cements into the canopy. That's ready to be decaled. I'll probably do that Monday just to see how it looks. But I'm not going to do that today because it's just a decal, but it has to be really carefully trimmed off of the sheet. And that very careful trimming requires a lot of care. I haven't worked on the Savoia now for a couple of weeks. I got to paint a whole bunch of minifigs, like a dozen of them. Some of them are Ulstein Grotfeld warriors. Some were Tashiranoon fighters, and one of them was a gigantic fungus-infected boulette. It's kind of, it was a good break from working on the Savoia, but now the Savoia needs to be worked on. And as I'm shaking this, you can't hear the rattling because it's filtered out by the microphone. There's a little mixing ball in the paint that if I keep this on camera, I want the camera to see what I'm doing. So I moved it in close, which means that if I keep it on camera, you'll be able to sort of see what I'm doing. And if I don't keep it on camera, for all you know, I'm not doing anything. Anyway, I need to get more of these little mixing balls. Putting on my head magnifiers so I can get them to focus. Just insane detail on the inside of those dials. I don't know. It will be really interesting to see how I do in terms of painting those. I'm very curious about how well I will do. It's mostly on camera. I'm painting a base coat of the wood color around. I'm using a teeny brush because I have to paint it around the dials. too concerned about getting it a little bit on the rim. And those will be painted a metallic color, brass probably. But I don't want to get it on the inside of the dials because there's a lot of detail there. Really fine little indentations and pointers and stuff. Just a lot of detail there that if paint builds up on it, it'll get lost. Which makes me a little bit concerned about painting the insides of those dials because I want a really thin paint. I want the paint to be really thin because I don't want it to cover up the detail. But the white paints I have are the opposite of thin. They don't cover very well to begin with, and they're just not very good. I don't know what I'm going to use for the inside of the dials. I'll have to decide soon though, because they are in fact the next thing to be painted. I'm going to paint the inside of the dials before I paint the rims. The color of this paint is very close to the color of the plastic. I didn't prime these for the same reason, which is I don't want paint buildup. Trying to avoid any kind of paint buildup on these so I don't lose the detail. On this paint to adhere without a primer. It's hard to tell if because of the paint is shiny when it's wet. Hard to tell if that's a bit that's not covered with paint. Is the raw plastic or whether the paint is just wet. I have no idea how I am going to get the detail of those dials. The techniques I've used in the past, I'm not sure could work on this. Does that bit up there persist in being so when I've been confronted with dials like this on the submarine, I painted the interior of the dial white, sometimes an off-white. There's that one spot there that keeps shining, and I can't tell painted or not. The base is pretty much on here. Putting the wash on to make it look like mahogany is going to be even more challenging than this. So when I've been confronted with dials like this on the submarine, hi, Enforcer. Oh, wow. That's a really good question. The question Enforcer is asking is whether the journal should be like the narrative from the perspective of the characters, or whether whether it's written by an outsider who's just describing it. I can express an opinion, but that's all it is. It's just my thought. And my thought is from the perspective of the character. Like it's the character keeping the journal. That's just a suggestion that I don't know. I would find personally, I would just find that more compelling as I was reading it, like an autobiography sort of thing. Where you can add description, okay, and it doesn't seem out of place as the characters may be describing some of their history. I think that would be interesting and maybe a little challenging. Yeah. Okay. Well, what you need, I will give you another hint, is if you've got a lot of characters, you could very easily like start on one and then be distracted by another and bounce back and forth. Pick no more than two. Okay. Ideally just pick one. And even if you're not sure, the lens on my head magnifier fell off onto the floor. Yeah, you can't do it with 30 people. I mean, with 30 different characters. But you can with one or two, like pick a narrator character. Sorry, just rubbing my eyes here. But if you could pick, you get to see me bending down trying to find pieces off the floor. But if you could pick a character or two who would be the author of the narrative, they could write about the other characters. It's kind of what we do in our show, is that a couple of us keep a journal and we write it from the perspective of our character. Okay. So it would be very much in character for that character to be writing the narrative. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's really neat. But it doesn't hurt to have more than one. It's kind of a good thing, actually. So there's a little variety. Maybe you could even try a different writing style, just different use of words or idioms or something of that sort. To differentiate who is writing. I don't know what to do about these dials. My white paint just so much sucks. And sometimes it's better if it's slightly off white. I'm going to mess up this little brush, right? What's left of it, by why don't you try writing it from the perspective of your dragon character? just start out doing that. And maybe even adopt a writing style that seems to be in that character. And then later on, you might be able to introduce another character, maybe in a different chapter. That you could have like a story arc told by one and a story arc told by the other, and they could maybe converge, that kind of thing. But yeah, give that a try. And getting it into it, now that you've got a beautiful journal, writing, tell a story in your journal. What could be better than that, really? In this stream, what would be better is figuring out how to paint the insides of those dials. I need a very thin coat of it needs to cover well and uniformly without having any height to it. Because otherwise the dials on the inside, all the little detail, the pointers and the things around the rim will disappear. I'm going to just have to test some stuff, I think. I've got a thing I can test on. This thing that I can't pick up. Okay, here, let me show you how this is going, right? This is the stand for the Porco Rosso figure. The model comes with a very detailed Porco Rosso. And Porco Rosso has a stand. Why not, right? Why not have a stand? So what I want to do to test these different paints, since this is the same plastic material as this, is I want to paint on the bottom. But it's there, finally. Yeah. I couldn't pick it up. Just terrific, right? Okay. This is something I do with some frequency. I have learned my lesson several times the hard way, is when you're really not sure how to do something or how it's going to look, is test. Test patches. And so I'm going to test patch on here little bits of paint to test for coverage and thinness. I want it to be a uniform color on the insides of these dials. Okay. I want that to be uniformly covered, but I want it to be very thin so that I can try to get it's not going to focus, the detail on the inside of it. So this is the same plastic as that. And it's just the bottom of this stand. I'm going to try ivory. Okay, I've got ivory. And I'm going to, there's several white colors I can try. I have dead white. And I have white. Bone white is too brown. And I think I've got, I think I have a Tamiya white. I'm not sure. Let me look. Yeah, there. I've got 4 options, one of which might work. No. But I've got a half hour here in the stream. I'm going to put them from left to right here in this order. And I'm going to leave that there until Monday so that after I look at them, I can tell which one was which. Sure, that's it. That's what will happen. This one is I'm going to start with the lighter color and go to the darker. This one hasn't been used, so it's going to need a lot of stirring, so I'm going to start with that. Once again, just for anybody who came in later, I'm going to be streaming on Monday and coming back to the Savoia, probably working on the instrument panel and then starting to get the parts for the engine and the engine compartment prepared, getting them prepped for the next stage of assembly. And once the instrument panel is done, I'll be able to finish the assembly of the interior here and take this whole thing and put it in a box over there where it will be safe, hopefully, if nobody picks up the box. And I should just say, do not touch. I'm going to put a big sign on it saying, do not touch this box, because it's going to be fragile. Those pieces could come out. And if it was tipped over, they would fly around on the inside of the box, and then things would break, and it would be bad. By bad, I mean really maybe not even be able to fix it. So yeah, there's that. But one thing on the instructions I didn't do is I didn't do this bit here. That's a decal of a seat belt. Okay. And there's a Porco Rosso figure that I haven't worked on yet that sits on the seat. And that Porco Rosso figure has a seat belt molded in. And so, oh yeah. Okay, so all of these parts here, including the instrument panels that I'm perseverating on and not getting very far so far. This is why I'm doing these tests. This gets assembled into this thing here, which is kind of a cage-like thing that goes around the seat, and the basically it's the cockpit. After I get this assembled, it will be attached. But before I attach it, I need to find out if the Porco Rosso seated figure goes through the top of it so I can put it in later, or whether I need to put the Porco Rosso in before I attach that. See, I'm thinking ahead. I'm anticipating something going wrong, which can happen. It happens with some frequency. Well, this is white. Yeah, maybe I should put it back in order to simulate what I'm doing. I want a little circle out. White spot. Whether it's the, I don't know why people say that, Z. So the word is the, right? T-H-E, the, it's pronounced the. But when you're trying to put an emphasis on it, some people say the, that is the spot. Well, no, that's not. It's still T-H-E, it's still the. It's the spot. As opposed to the spot, but somehow we've changed the pronunciation partially, and we just do that in English, even though it's the same word spelled the same way with the same meaning, it's pronounced totally differently if one is trying to make an emphasis with it. Strikes me as odd. So it's a spot. Oh, that's another thing. That's a spot, not a spot. That's another thing that we decide to pronounce differently depending on who knows what. That's a spot. That's a spot. Okay, this is, oh, I should do this. I'm going to paint it over the raised bit here. Why am I doing that? I want to see how thin it is. Do that with the other one too. Right now it looks like this covers a lot better. This might be adequate for the purpose. It's much thinner paint. I think it's a safer bet. There it is. This has really been unused for a long time. This is another one of those paints that hasn't been used in forever. So there's another option. I don't know. No, the other option. I was thinking of using a speed paint because of the pigment separates. But I don't have like a white one. And even if I did, the dark pigment would go. I want the raised part to be dark and the other part to be light. So maybe if it had like bright white pigment in it, that would work. What I was thinking is that, you know, the white pigment would settle. The pigment would settle in the bottom of the dial, and the raised part would stay darker. And this isn't too bad. Paint's almost gone. It evaporates really fast. This is what happens if you know, you buy a big jar of paint and then don't use it. So maybe it doesn't turn out to be the most economical. It is if you use a lot of that same color. Hi, Mr. Moonbeam. Oh, I'm glad. Oh, thanks for joining in. Yeah, you get to see the last 20 minutes or so, and I can explain what I'm doing because it doesn't look like much right now. Is I've got this Porco Rosso model, this Spoya S21, that I carefully set down somewhere so I show it to people, and there it is. Huh. Now I'm working on this, and the part I'm working on now, and you can see it here, is the interior detail. That's this part, and I'm trying to get the instrument panel painted. And you can see that whoever did this box top model really was really good at that, what they did, and they did a beautiful job with the instrument panel. Oh, you did. Yeah, and I'm trying to get the instrument panel to look like that. I'm not quite done with the Apollo yet. Actually, the thing with the Apollo is the instrument panel. The panel that came with the model has really tiny, lightly embossed completely inauthentic instruments. And it's going to be possible to get a glance of them through the open hatch of the command module. It's around here somewhere, actually. Yeah, it's in one of these boxes. It's the Apollo is almost done except for the command module. And the command module, I didn't want to just put it together with this just blank instrument panel because it wouldn't look very good. So what I have done is I've gone online and gotten pictures of the Apollo 11 instrument panel, which still exists because the command module is in the Smithsonian, right? So I've gotten pictures of that, and I'm going to print them. Yeah, I'm going to print them on sticky back paper. I guess I'll just call it that, like a sticker. I'm going to print it onto a sticker and stick the printed instrument panels onto the plastic bit. And I've actually tested one in black and white. I'll bring it down here on Monday so I could show it off. You know, if you happen to catch it on Monday, I'll show that off to show you what I'm trying to do. But there's always something. So I got them. They look pretty good when they're printed. But our color printer, the yellow decided not to work anymore. Seriously. So I've got magenta and cyan. You can't just call them red and blue, right? I've got magenta and cyan, and the yellow doesn't work. And so things that are supposed to be green come out blue. I don't know. The orange came out pink somehow. It just did. And so that whole project has been totally delayed as I'm trying to get the instrument panel done. Yeah, they are. So I don't know why, but the yellow isn't working. Wasted a whole bunch of ink cleaning the print heads. Oh, yeah, and then that just keeps adding up, right? There's always something and then something else and something else. So trying to clean the print heads, and it turns out that cleaning the print heads on this printer doesn't put ink onto a paper. It shoves it into a maintenance reservoir. Just goes right into this little plastic bucket. And it got filled up. And when it fills up, the printer stops working. So in this effort to get the yellow to work, I managed to get the printer to not work at all until the part shows up. Well, the part was supposed to show up. I can tell this story. This is how things really go. So the part was supposed to show up on Tuesday. And it didn't. And I'm doing the tracking, and it says a delivery exception. Thinking, well, what's exceptional about this? It's just this little thing. It's like this big, right? This big. And it's an empty reservoir where the ink dumps in. So I finally, I went through a whole bunch of pushing buttons and looking at things, and it finally said weather delay. Well, there wasn't any bad weather anywhere. But anyway, it got delayed. So it's now, yesterday it was in Indianapolis. It made it to Indianapolis from wherever it started yesterday, and it's supposed to show up maybe today. We'll see. But I really should show people the Apollo again, because I've got all of the components finished except for the command module, and the parts are all ready to be assembled for the command module, other than these instrument panels that I want to put together. I did some test fitting, and the stuff doesn't fit. It's just, I'm really concerned that, the parts, the instrument panel parts kind of surround top of the seats, the astronaut seats, and and then the top of it goes on top of that, the shell of the command module. And I could just imagine that I get this thing assembled and I get the seams kind of filled in and all of that, so it looks decent, and the instrument panels and all of their sticker glory are showing. That then I try to put the top of it on the shell of the command module, and it won't fit. Why am I concerned about that? Because that's just how that model's been going. But the service module is done. Both parts of the LEM are done, and those came out really quite nicely, including the gold foil part on the landing, the landing part of the LEM, not the ascent stage, the descent stage. That came out pretty well. The service module, except for the fact that one part broke off and I need to re-cement it, had been going pretty well. There's that kind of thing. Yes, it actually is. The when I bought the model, okay, I was looking at it and said the LEM, the descent stage was, most of it was wrapped in gold foil. Gold mylar foil. It's all crumply looking and everything. It looks just really, I don't know, crappy on the real LEM, because there's an extra one that they put in the Smithsonian. And there's some pictures of it. And so I thought, this is really cool. I'm going to go out and get myself some gold foil so that I can replicate this on the model. But I didn't have to. The model actually came with gold colored foil, which was moderately easy to work with. And so I was able to wrap the descent stage, but also the struts. The model didn't say to do this, but I looked at the real LEM, and the struts and the landing pads were also covered in gold foil. So I had enough extra that I was able to do that. And it came out pretty well. But all the parts are in boxes over there. I put them in little boxes and stacked them up, because otherwise they'd just be gathering dust. And they really, I think, came out really quite well. So maybe that's what I'll do on Monday is bring that out, just so that I can show people that it really exists, and show what I'm trying to do with the instrument panels on the command module. Yeah, please join in on Monday, because that would give me a real incentive to bring it out and just show it to people. I'll wander back and forth between here and the shelf and bring the boxes out and show people the parts of the model that I've been working on. The only other, the thing I'm working on here, this is tests for the instrument panel dials. Okay? The dials need to be painted white on the inside of the rims, and it needs to cover, it needs to cover it with pigment, but not obscure the detail on the inside of the dials, because I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's like little needles and markings around the edges of the dials. It's really incredibly detailed. So I was testing my white paints to see, both on a smooth surface and on a rough surface, to see how they would work. The ones that cover the best, okay, also tend to cover up the detail. So what I'm thinking is that, I might be able to use like this. I might be able to use like this. And if I can get it doesn't have to be pure white. It just needs to be whitish. Okay. So here, that paint is just too thick. It covers up the detail. This one comes close. But I think this would work if I get it into the dial like that with enough pigment, but it doesn't cover the detail. So painting the inside of the dials isn't hugely a problem. There's a raised rim around it, and so that will confine the paint. to the inside as long as I keep the brush inside where the dial is. And then painting the rim of the dial, it's raised up pretty well. I should be able to, with a teeny brush, get brass paint around them. What has me baffled, though, is the little needles, the pointers, and the markings around the rims that should be painted darker. And the technique I used on the submarine, if you look at some really old streams, thank you for the follow. Thank you. If you look at some really old streams, I was building this model of a submarine. It was actually 3 of them that I combined into one that worked. Mid-1960s kit of Polaris launching submarine, and the hull folds down, and then you can see the entire detail on the inside of the sub. That took about a year. Oh, terrific. Thanks for the follow, and thanks for joining up in chat. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could check out those old submarine ones. And they have instrument panels like this too, but the internal detail and the rim were at the same height. Okay, they were raised by the same amount. And so I was able to do this thing that actually worked pretty well. Take a nail and sand the head down so that it's perfectly flat. Okay, and then ink this and press it on the surface. And because it's perfectly flat and the ink on here is really thin, it only went on the raised parts. And so I was able to get the internal, not just the rim, but the internal detail done that way. And that worked pretty well, but I'm not sure. I can do something similar with the head of a pin. I could probably get, the head of the pin I might be able to stamp it with the same sort of technique. Let me just look at that. This isn't flat, it's rounded, but I can file it flat. It's in that one. I might have to get like a smaller pin for some of these little ones. Well, it's just something I need to work on next week. Is somehow, well, first of all, I need to pick the color that I'm going to paint the inside of the dials with, and it looks like it's going to be this one. And after that dries, then I need to figure out how to get the detail on the inside done. Using the head of the pin technique just seems to be the best. And I think just a regular stick pin, the heads on that are actually a little big. But if I could get that, I might be able to stamp it. If it doesn't work, and I discovered this by making a mistake, is that the ink that I use cleans off nicely with isopropyl alcohol. Actually, the paint does too, but I got the black ink all over the place. It just spread. It was a mess. And so I took a little bit of a paper towel, a little bit, and I dabbed it. And it actually not only cleaned off the parts I wanted cleaned off, but it left the parts I wanted left. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of detail there. And I'm not going to work on that yet anymore today, because as I get near the end of the stream, I lose my eye-hand coordination and my ability to focus. But if we look at these, especially these here where it's painted over, I don't know, there's some writing there on the bottom. This is the stand for the Porco Rosso minifig. These don't cover that well on a flat surface, but on a rough surface like this, they're thin enough, both of these, that it leaves the detail showing. It's a very thin coat. This one's too thick, it covers the best, but it covers the detail. This one is an off-white. I don't know if you can even see the difference, but it's slightly yellowish, which has some advantages, but the paint is a little thick. So I'm going to try that, and I hope it works. It's this one here. Okay. I'll be back on Monday working on the instrument panel for the Porco Rosso Savoia S21. This model was a gift. I didn't even know it existed as a model. It was just like, wow, that is really cool. And it's in 1/48 scale, which is the scale I really like to build in. So it's just perfect. And just like the submarine and the Apollo, it seems to be a theme of the models that I've been working on lately. It is a cutaway model in that the top of the plane lifts off to show the interior detail. So it just has everything. I'll be working on that instrument panel. I'll be putting the decal on the cheater one. Okay. And then, assuming the instrument panel can work, I'll be assembling the cage for the cockpit. These parts putting together. And then this one, which was there and was attached, came off because the adhesive didn't work. I have to reattach that. It goes there. But yeah, so far, I think it's coming out really nicely, and I'm really happy with like the control yoke, okay, with the different colors on it, the rubber grip and the red handle, some of the metallic on these other things, and the fuel tank. This was 2 halves, and I got the seams. I got rid of the seams and painted it metallic, and it came out fine. And as did the bands around the different colored bands to hold it down. So far, I have to say that it's going pretty well, and it looks pretty nice. So on Monday, thank you so much. On Monday, I'm going to be working on the instrument panel, and hopefully it'll go okay. And also, I'm going to show off the Apollo, because people haven't seen that in a long time. And also show off what it is I'm trying to do with the instrument panels and why. So thanks, everybody, and thanks for the new follow, and I really hope to see you Monday. After Monday, I'm going to be gone for 3 streams, Wednesday and Friday next week, and then the following Monday, I won't be streaming because I have to be traveling. But I'll be here on Monday and then back again on, I believe it's the 18th. You started your journal, Enforcer? Okay, that's really cool. And you're writing it from the perspective of your wizard. Even better. Yep. Become your character as you're writing. And that works out just the best. Is to do that. Yep, see you on Monday. I'll show off the Apollo. I'll paint the insides of the dials. Hopefully it works well. And we'll find out. We'll find out, won't we? Thanks, everybody. Check out our Dungeons and Dragons show, by the way. That is also a really cool thing. See you soon.